My parents demanded that I pay off my sister's mortgage. When I refused, they sued me for $750,000, so the judge asked one question. I'm Camille Torres. I turned 32 last spring, and for as long as I can remember, I've known exactly where I stood in my family, behind my sister Vanessa. Older than me by 3 years, she was always the golden child. She was the one who got the extra smiles, the praise, the last slice of pie, and the better bedroom. According to our parents, she did everything right. She got married at 24, had 2 daughters by 27, baked lasagna from scratch, and sent out holiday cards before Thanksgiving. And me? I stayed single, built my career, and lived quietly across town in a rented condo no one ever visited. I had a 401k, a Roth IRA, and peace that didn't depend on anyone else. But apparently, none of that counts when you're not wearing a wedding ring. My parents, Gloria and Robert, never said it directly, but their questions always carried a sting. Don't you want children before it's too late? Your sister's girls are getting so big. It's sad they don't have cousins. You're still in that same condo, huh? I learned to nod and redirect the conversation. I used to think if I worked hard enough, maybe they'd finally see me the way they saw Vanessa. But that illusion faded slowly, like dust settling on furniture you stopped noticing after a while. I wasn't the daughter they bragged about. I was the one they trusted to be fine. Still, I didn't complain. I came home for holidays, fixed their router, brought wine when they forgot birthdays, mine included. I stayed on the sidelines because distance felt safer than disappointment. But I didn't realize that distance wouldn't protect me forever, that one day they'd pull me so close I wouldn't even recognize the person I'd become. Vanessa's perfect life began to unravel the way fine china cracks, quietly, then all at once. Her husband Brandon had been cheating for years. She found the messages by accident. Or maybe she just stopped pretending not to see what had been obvious all along. When she filed for divorce, no one blamed her, not even our parents. Then Brandon vanished. No child support, no apology, just gone. Vanessa was left with 2 little girls, Sophia and Lily, and a mountain of bills she couldn't handle alone. Our parents offered sympathy, but their savings were tied up in what they liked to call retirement security. Vanessa ended up renting a 2-bedroom apartment, where the girls shared a bed and the wallpaper peeled at the corners. I didn't think twice. I covered the retainer for her lawyer. I paid 6 months of her rent when her part-time job at the rec center wasn't enough. I babysat on weekends so she could breathe. I never brought it up, never expected repayment. I loved my nieces. And Vanessa, once so composed, looked shattered, like a porcelain doll trying to pretend the cracks were part of the design. A small, hopeful part of me thought maybe now our parents would finally see the truth. Maybe this time they'd realize I wasn't the one with something to prove. They didn't. Every conversation with Mom turned into an update about Vanessa's struggles, followed by a not-so-subtle question about my love life. I stayed quiet, kept helping, convinced myself that family meant showing up even when it hurt. But the thing about being the dependable one is that people eventually stop seeing your help as kindness. They see it as obligation. It was a Wednesday when my mother called. "Camille, honey, we have such wonderful news. Can you come over tonight?" Her voice had a brightness I hadn't heard in years. I thought maybe Brandon had resurfaced. Maybe the courts had found him. Or maybe Vanessa's life had finally taken a turn for the better. "Is it about the girls? The support payments?" I asked. No, even better," she said quickly. "Just come by. Your father's already home, and Vanessa will be here too." I drove over after work, tired but curious. There was something rehearsed about her tone. Too cheerful, too prepared. But I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe for once, there was actual good news. When I walked into the living room, everyone was already seated. Dad in his recliner, Mom perched neatly on the couch, Vanessa beside her, smiling faintly. On the coffee table sat a manila folder. "There she is," Dad said, standing to hug me before handing me the folder. "Take a look." Inside was a stack of papers, legal documents filled with mortgage language, and a real estate logo stamped across the top. "What is this?" I asked. "It's for Vanessa's new house," Mom said, eyes shining. "We used most of our savings and a bit of our retirement fund for the down payment. Isn't it wonderful?" I blinked. "You bought a house?" "Yes," she said, clasping her hands together. 3 bedrooms, big yard, perfect for the girls. They need stability. That little apartment just isn't enough." I looked at Vanessa. She gave a small, nervous nod. "That's great," I said honestly. "The girls will love it." I started to hand the folder back. Mom stopped me. "No, no, sweetheart. Those are for you." "For me?" Dad cleared his throat. "We've talked about this as a family, and we've decided you'll take over the mortgage. You've been saving for years. You can easily make the payments." "Vanessa can't afford it," Mom added softly. "She's doing her best, but those kids need a home." For a long moment, no one spoke. I could hear my own heartbeat. "You're asking me to pay for Vanessa's house?" Vanessa's eyes dropped to her lap. "After Brandon left, I don't have much," she said. "I just want to give them a real home." I stared at the mortgage papers again. The total was staggering. "I already paid for her divorce," I said quietly, "and 6 months of rent. I've been saving for a decade for my own place." Mom reached across the table, all gentle tone and guilt. "We raised you, Camille. We've done so much for you. Isn't it time to give back?" I stood abruptly, heart pounding. "You bought a house knowing she couldn't afford it because you assumed I'd cover it." Dad didn't even try to deny it. "You don't have a husband or kids," he said plainly. "It's not like you have other obligations." "I'm not doing this," I said. "This isn't help. This is manipulation." I left the folder where it lay and walked out before my voice could break. I told myself they'd cool off, that they'd realize how insane this was, that asking your unmarried daughter to fund her sister's mortgage wasn't something reasonable people would defend. I was wrong. If you've ever been betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you're watching from. The first call came that Saturday from my cousin Bethany, who I hadn't spoken to since Grandpa's funeral. "Aunt Gloria told me what happened," she said without greeting. "I can't believe you're being so cold." "Excuse me." "Vanessa's a single mom, Camille. Those girls are your nieces. You're sitting on all that money and won't help." I gripped the countertop. "Bethany, you don't know the full story." "I know enough," she snapped. "Family helps family. Vanessa would do the same for you." A bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. "No, she wouldn't," I said quietly. "You're unbelievable." Click. The messages started after that. Texts, voicemails, even Facebook comments. People I barely remembered piling on. Uncle Lawrence, cousin Natalie, acquaintances from years ago, all echoing the same judgment. "You're selfish. They raised you. She has kids. You don't." What struck me most wasn't the anger. It was the certainty. The way they spoke like they knew I was wrong. Like my independence made me less deserving of compassion and more responsible for everyone else's choices. The worst came from Aunt Pauline, Mom's older sister. She called during dinner. "I just want to talk some sense into you," she began in that syrupy tone she used when she wanted something. "You're not getting any younger, Camille. Who knows if you'll ever have children? At least this way you'd be contributing to your family's future. So because I'm single," I said flatly, "I owe Vanessa a house." "Don't be dramatic," she said sweetly. "They need help, and you're in a position to give it." That night, I blocked every number that had chimed in, one by one. If they couldn't respect my boundaries, they didn't deserve my peace. And deep down, I knew something I'd been refusing to admit. This wasn't about the house. It never was. 2 months went by. Silence. No calls from my parents. No texts from Vanessa. Just stillness. I threw myself into work, took long morning walks, and let quiet start to feel like peace instead of punishment. Then one Thursday, an envelope arrived, thick, official. My name typed in bold. I assumed it was insurance paperwork until I opened it. They were suing me. Gloria and Robert Torres, my parents, had filed a civil claim. They were demanding $750,000 in reimbursement for expenses related to Camille Torres's upbringing. I read it twice. Then again, every line colder than the last. Food, clothing, education, even something labeled emotional support during adolescence, which made me laugh out loud. They'd even listed vacations from when I was 6. And at the end, clear as day, funds to be used to complete the mortgage on the Torres property purchased for Vanessa Torres and her minor children. They weren't even pretending it was about fairness. I called the best lawyer I could find, Angela Richardson. We met the next morning. She was sharp, calm, unshakable. They have no legal claim, she said, flipping through the packet. Parents are obligated to provide for their minor children. There's no law requiring repayment. Then why sue me? Leverage, she said simply. They're hoping you'll pay to avoid a courtroom. Or worse, they genuinely believe you owe them. I sat in her office, numb, angry, ashamed that any part of me still cared what they thought. For the next 3 weeks, I gathered everything, every receipt, every transfer, every favor. The $7,200 for Vanessa's rent. The $5,500 to her divorce attorney. The small deposits to Mom and Dad's account over the years, $500 here, $1,000 there. Screenshots of texts asking for little help when Dad's pension came up short. I found records I didn't even know I'd saved. Evidence of a lifetime of quiet giving, and proof that love in my family had always come with an invoice. When the court date came, I wore grey slacks and a blouse my grandmother had given me years ago. I brought only what I needed, and Walter and Diane, who showed up in quiet defiance of their own daughter. Grandma squeezed my hand. "What they're doing isn't right," she whispered. "But you already know that." Across the aisle, my parents sat with Vanessa beside them. She looked anywhere but at me. I told myself to breathe, not to hope. This wasn't about changing their minds. It was about proving mine still mattered. The courtroom was colder than it should have been in the middle of summer. The walls were beige, the carpet thin. I remember wondering who had picked the chairs, hard plastic, unyielding, like they were built to punish waiting. My parents sat on the left, Vanessa between them, aunts and uncles behind. People who hadn't sent me a birthday card in years, now here to support the family. On my side sat just two, Grandpa Walter and Grandma Diane. She wore a brooch I hadn't seen since I was a child. When she leaned over to squeeze my hand, I almost broke. Then the judge walked in. He looked to be in his 60s, grey at the temples, glasses low on his nose, the kind of man who didn't rush to speak because he'd already heard every kind of lie. My father stood first. "Your Honor," he began, "we are not unreasonable people. But we invested our lives, our money, our time into raising Camille. We are only asking for a portion of that back to help our other daughter and her children." The judge didn't blink. "Specifically," he said, flipping a page, "what did you spend on her education after she turned 18? Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Dad cleared his throat. "Well, at that time, Vanessa had just gotten married. We were helping her and her husband get established." "So," the judge clarified, "you did not contribute to the defendant's college expenses?" "No," Mom said quickly. "But my mother, Camille's grandmother, did. And since she's my mother, I'd argue we supported her indirectly." From behind me, Grandma let out the faintest scoff. Angela rose, calm, methodical. "Your Honor, we have documentation showing that Ms. Torres has been financially independent since the age of 18. In addition, she has provided repeated financial support to both her parents and her sister." She handed over the file, bank transfers, receipts, emails. "This includes $7,200 in rent payments for her sister, $5,500 to her divorce attorney, and multiple direct deposits to her parents during times they reported financial hardship. The judge reviewed quietly, then looked up. So the defendant wasn't receiving support, but giving it. Correct, Angela said. My mother shifted in her seat. That money isn't relevant, she argued. We are talking about the cost of raising her. Food, shelter, emotional guidance. Why exactly, the judge asked, do you need $750,000 now? Mom hesitated, looked at Vanessa. To help Vanessa pay off the mortgage, she said softly. Silence. Even Uncle Lawrence shifted uncomfortably behind her. The judge turned to Vanessa. Miss Torres, do you believe your sister should be responsible for your home loan? Vanessa finally looked up. She's not married. She doesn't have children. I do. And that creates a financial obligation, he asked. We are family. The judge raised an eyebrow. I'm not married either. Should I pay for my clerk's rent, or my bailiff's children? Vanessa blinked, said nothing. The judge turned back to my parents. Did you financially support Camille after she became an adult? We were helping Vanessa, Dad repeated. So you prioritized one daughter over another, he said it plainly. No accusation, just fact. They didn't answer. For the next hour, he asked hard questions, not cruel, but unflinching. Why did they assume I would pay? Why purchase a house they knew Vanessa couldn't afford? Why tie love to guilt, and guilt to debt? They gave the kind of answers that collapse under their own weight. When we stepped outside, Grandma hugged me first. You were steady, she said. That's more than I can say for anyone else in that room. I wasn't sure if I'd won. Not yet. But for the first time in a long while, I wasn't the one on trial. The verdict came 1 week later. The courtroom felt smaller the second time. Maybe because I was finally breathing in it. The judge didn't waste words. After reviewing the evidence, I find the plaintiff's claim to be without merit. Mr. and Mrs. Torres, the financial responsibility of raising a child does not entitle you to reimbursement once the child becomes an adult. He glanced down at his notes, then back up. In fact, the evidence suggests Miss Camille Torres has already provided significant financial support to both you and her sister. Then quietly, but not softly, frankly, I find your behavior toward your daughter to be brazen and disappointing. Dismissed. Just like that. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just stood there while Angela smiled and Grandma squeezed my arm and Grandpa whispered, You're free. I thought it was over. It wasn't. A week later, I got a call from Grandma. Your mother came by yesterday, she said, voice tired. She asked us to release her inheritance early. For what? I asked, though I already knew. To pay off Vanessa's mortgage, she said. I sat down. What did you say? I told her we haven't decided who gets what. That the will is ours to manage. Did she get angry? No, Grandma said. She cried. She begged us not to disinherit her. I didn't know what hurt more, that she asked, or that she cried over money, not me. Months passed, quiet ones. I closed on a small house, nothing big, but mine. I painted the kitchen sage green, planted herbs, adopted a grey cat that slept beside my laptop every night. Vanessa rented out her house, moved back in with our parents. Mom babysat while Vanessa worked. Somehow they made it work. I didn't call. I didn't write. Then almost a year after the trial, an email landed in my inbox. No subject line. Just this. We heard you bought a house. Since you now have extra space, we think it would be best if Vanessa and the girls moved in with you. It would be much more convenient for them there. Let us know when they can move in. Love, Mom and Dad. I read it twice. I didn't get angry. I just replied, I will not be hosting Vanessa or the girls. If you contact me again with these kinds of demands, I will report the harassment to the police. Do not email me again. Then I hit send, blocked the email, and moved on. These days, My house smells like fresh rosemary and coffee. The cat, Slate, grey and solemn, sits on the windowsill most mornings, watching birds he'll never chase. I painted the kitchen sage green like I always said I would. And the herbs out back are finally coming in. It's quiet here. No voices raised. No questions I don't want to answer. Grandma and Grandpa visit often. They bring pie or old newspaper clippings they think I'll like. Grandpa helps with the gutters. Grandma still reminds me to lock my windows at night, even though I've got a security system. They don't talk about my parents unless I ask, and I rarely do. One Sunday, as we sat on the porch swing, Grandma said, "Your mother's still talking about you. Still telling people you abandoned Vanessa." I didn't answer. "Your Aunt Pauline told her to stop bringing it up at family gatherings," she said. "No one wants to hear it anymore." That part made me smile. I'm not naive. I know they still think I failed some unspoken test of loyalty, that I should have stepped up, even if it meant laying down everything I'd built. But I also know this: I sleep better now. Vanessa, from what I hear, is still living at home, renting out the house to cover the mortgage. The girls are growing fast. I haven't seen them in over a year. Sometimes I wonder what they've been told. Sometimes I wonder if they'll ever reach out. But I don't wait for it. I'm dating someone, Connor. Kind, with a laugh that feels like space being made. He doesn't ask about my family. Not yet. And I don't offer. Some ties don't need explaining. Some ties don't need mending. Every once in a while, I feel that ache of what could have been. If they'd ever seen me as more than spare parts. If love hadn't come with fine print. But I don't regret saying no. Not anymore. Because peace, I've learned, isn't given. It's claimed.